Welcome again to Joe Stunner Boxing. I hope you're having a good weekend. I want to talk today about AJ Joshua versus Otto Wallin, because this is creeping up on us, this December the 23rd card, definitely. And I've heard a lot of people say AJ against Wallin. AJ's probably the favourite, but Wallin is a danger. And I've heard other people say, oh, it's a complete mismatch. Well, it certainly is not a mismatch. I agree with the former assessment. I think this is a potential banana skin for Joshua, and I'm going to go into it a little bit, and then you can leave your comments below. Let's talk a bit about Otto Wallin, because this is as you probably know, he's a heavyweight from Sweden. He has 26 wins and 1 defeat, 14 KOs in the win column. And the defeat, as you probably know, was to Tyson Fury. It was on points. He badly cut Fury. I mean, many fights would have been stopped on that cut. It was a terrible injury. But, you know, Fury did win a comfortable decision. It was really a case of the cut hindering him a little bit. But that's kind of Wallin's claim to fame. You know, I cut Tyson Fury. I went the distance with him. Okay, fair enough. But you didn't beat him. And the idea is to win. Now, since then, Wallin, who is 33 years old, a lot of people forget how big he is. He's actually listed at 6'5.5" on BoxRec. So he's not a small heavyweight. He's not like, you know, a Gasaev or someone else who's coming up from cruiserweight. This is a guy who is big. There's a lot of mass there. And he also has the fundamentals down very well. He does everything well. Defensively, he's very good. Nice jab. Uses his feet quite well. He's not outstanding at anything, but he is a good, all-round, well-schooled fighter. And anyone who has those qualities, who has a modicum of talent and has maximized it, is going to be a potential threat to a more talented fighter, if the more talented fighter is not on his game. Okay? So since the Fury fight, Wallin has had 6 contests, okay? And, you know, he came back and, I mean, some of them are against decent men. Like after Fury, he scored a 5th-round TKO of Travis Kaufman, who wasn't world-class, was never world-class, but he did come in with a 32 wins and 3 defeats record. So, and he has flattered to deceive, you might say, Kaufman. Again, not a great fighter, but a decent initial comeback foe for Wallin. He then followed that up. By the way, the Kaufman fight was in 2020. The Fury fight was in 2019. So that was the only fight he had in 2020. But in 2021, he followed it up with a very good win over Dominic Breazeale, who was coming off that bad knockout to Deontay Wilder, 1st-round knockout, and looking to get back in the game. But he was easily outpointed by Wallin. And Dominic Breazeale, again, you know, not a great fighter, but, you know, has actually shown a lot of heart in the past. During the build-up to the Wilder fight, it was all a bit rock'em sock'em robots with some of his opponents, but he prevailed. So he shows he's got heart to go with the moderate skill set. Then it was Kamil Sokolovsky over in Britain. We know about Kamil, very good journeyman, now banned due to PED use. Shame, isn't it? And actually, Sokolovsky, that was just an 8-rounder. That was in 2022. But Wallin, who had been inactive, did have a second fight against Rydell Booker in 2022. And again, Booker came in with 26 wins, 5 defeats and 1 draw. You know, a journeyman. I remember Rydell Booker before he went to prison. He was fighting James Toney at, I think, light heavyweight or super middleweight or something. I mean, he's now campaigning at heavyweight and picking up a few paychecks. Easy 10-round win for Otto Wallin. He then had a fight against someone who I can't even remember his name. He was a journeyman. That was a unanimous 8-round decision. He looked so flat against Booker and this, I think, Olgium, what the guy was called. I've never heard of him, to be honest with you. And he went the 8-round distance, Wallin did, and he just looked sort of bored. And it's not that he's on the downside of his career. He just needs motivation. Well, he had that motivation because he then fought in 2023. This was actually the second fight of 2023. He had the journeyman was earlier this year, but in September of this year, which is not that far away, you know, not that far back, he fought Murat Gasaev, and many people predicted Gasaev to win. Gasaev very heavy-handed, former cruiserweight, now campaigning at heavyweight, 30 wins and 1 defeat. And the defeat was to someone called Alexander Usyk. So Gasayev was no one's mug. But he went over to, Otto Wallin went over to, I think it was in Turkey. I want to say Turkey. I might be wrong about that. But it was certainly alien territory for Wallin. And Gasayev, having moved up since losing to Usyk, he lost widely to Usyk, lost almost all the rounds. That was back in 2018. In the last 5 years, kind of like Wallin, he hadn't fought that many opponents. He hadn't fought that often, and he was sort of floating around looking for an opportunity. So the two of them came together, and it was Wallin who won a split decision. And, you know, to be honest with you, I mean, the two cards that Wallin won were, I think, 115, 113. And Gasayev's card was wide, like a 116, 112, 117, 111, something like that. But I watched that fight, and I thought Wallin probably edged it. So I have no complaint at all with the split decision. Now, Wallin, it should be mentioned, is a southpaw as well. So when you consider all the things we've discussed, you know, decent skill set, decent feet, reasonable punch, not really much power, but reasonable enough to get your attention, and good jab, good technique. How is AJ going to fare on the third fight of his comeback in 2023? I mean, whatever you think of AJ, and I have my criticisms as well, and I did have criticisms before he lost, you know, initially to Andy Ruiz, but he is a trier, and he is trying to resurrect his career. He's 34, so he's a year older than Otto Wallin, and he's fought Jermaine Franklin earlier in the year, which I think was April. He then fought Robert Helenius, who was a late stand-in. That was in August. And now he's got Otto Wallin. So you can't knock AJ for, you know, trying to be busy, trying to put some names on his record. And I don't think, first of all, I don't think the fact that Wallin is a southpaw, it shouldn't bug Joshua. Why? Because Joshua went 24 rounds with Alexander Usyk, which when the dust settles and everyone's retired, people will probably look back on that and say, wow, you know, you lasted the distance with Usyk twice. That's not a bad thing to have on your resume. You didn't win. It's like Otto Wallin going the distance with Fury. He didn't win, but those 12 rounds may well have made him a better fighter. And I don't see why the 24 rounds with Usyk shouldn't have its benefits too. I think Joshua should be able to handle the southpaw stance of Wallin. It's not a problem for him. It shouldn't be a problem for him. Certainly not if Derek James and Ben Davison, who's a very good strategist, they will have that in mind. Where I think the doubts creep in is that Wallin has always come across as a very quietly confident character. Now, you consider that he went to wherever the hell it was to fight Gasayev. I want to say Turkey, but I've got a feeling I'm wrong about that. Was it Armenia? I honestly don't know. Anyway, the point is he went abroad to fight Gasayev. He's fought many fights in the United States, including the Fury one. He's fought in Britain. He's fought in Latvia. He's obviously fought in Sweden. He's fought in Switzerland. He's fought in Bulgaria. This guy has travelled. Germany is another place he had a few early fights in. This guy is very, very well travelled and comes across, whenever you see him interviewed and whenever you see him before a fight, as being very quietly confident. Now, if you contrast this with Joshua, who hasn't looked great in his last two fights, and to be honest, I didn't expect him to look great because he is working on new things with Derek James. That's the theory anyway. But the disturbing thing about Joshua is that he's never quite been the same since that first Andy Ruiz fight. He's always been a little bit apprehensive, a little bit tentative. At times he comes across as being kind of flat out. Is scared scared's the wrong word, but overly cautious, certainly. Very, very tight, very nervous. Scared is the wrong word, but there's a nervousness about him which seems to prevent his punches and his technique and everything from flowing, which is what you need if you're a fighter. Now, if you contrast that with the earlier AJ, the one when he was unbeaten, I mean, look at him against not Derek Chisora. I always get these two confused. I always switch the names. Against Dillian White. Dillian White had put it on him before the before the fight, he was testing him. AJ came out in that fight like a killer, mugging Dillian Whyte, trying to knock him out in the first round, sticking his tongue out, talking to him. He didn't give a damn about, oh, you're some road guy, are you? Well, this is a boxing match, and you're in there with me now, and no one can help you. Your crew can't help you, no one can help you. And he had that killer instinct and beat the living crap out of Whyte. I mean, Whyte did wobble Joshua in the second round and hurt him to the body as well. But look, it was a beatdown, and it ended with Whyte getting knocked flat and losing his unbeaten record. Now, that type of AJ, I don't know whether, I certainly think it's a mental thing and a matter of the psyche. But again, let's move on to the subject of trainers. He's been with Derek James for a year. He's a little bit more than a year. Ben Davison has come in. Is this just a stand-in because James is busy? I wouldn't have thought James would be busy for a heavyweight, potential big money. Well, there's not nothing potential about it. Joshua is a big draw. I would have thought that Derek James would make time for Anthony Joshua. So what's Ben Davison doing here? You know the old saying, the old cliche, too many cooks spoil the broth. I think that I've done videos on this before, and I may well do more videos, because to me, this is Joshua in a nutshell. Now, the thing of having said, let's play devil's advocate, because Ben Davison is a very cerebral type of guy who will give very strict instructions on a carefully thought out plan. And that seems to be what Joshua likes. Because Joshua, you see him, when he's walking to the ring, he's talking to people. He was talking to Clifton Mitchell, wasn't he, before one of the fights? Was it the first through his fight? What do you think? What do you think I should do? And between rounds, he's asking his trainer questions. Do you want me to do this? What should I do? It's not like Tyson Fury, whose ring IQ is so high, he goes in there and riffs it. A lot of natural fighters do that. Crawford doesn't need a telling. Joshua is the type of guy who needs to be told. He needs to be guided, almost someone emotionally and mentally holding his hand in the ring. At least that's how it's been since in the second half of his career. And if he slips into that mode, and Wallin can get his jab going, can start outworking him, gets a bit brave, gets closer, Joshua hits extremely hard, of course, then Wallin can definitely cause some problems here. Because this is a 12-round fight, it's not a 10-round fight. This is 36 minutes of fighting. And when you bear in mind that Joshua against Helenius, who I admit was a late replacement, but even so, he finished that fight with blood coming out of his nose and his mouth. Helenius was landing that jab. And Wallin's jab ain't bad. It's not hard, but it's accurate. And a few, a southpaw jab, a few backhands as well. It will ask questions, or potentially he will ask questions of Joshua. And I think this is a far more interesting fight, a very intriguing fight, far more so than a lot of people are thinking. I don't buy the dismissive, it's an easy one for Joshua. I don't think it is at all. I think Joshua will have some questions asked by a calm, calculated, cold-blooded Wallin who will come in. He's got that Swedish mentality. They're a very relaxed nation, very relaxed. Lovely people, but, they don't get stressed about much. And he will go about his work, and it will then be up to AJ to kind of pick the lock and decide, how am I going to keep this guy at bay? Now, my prediction for this fight, and it may change, I may do another prediction video, I don't know. My prediction is AJ on points. I don't think AJ stops Wallin, but I'll have to have a think. It's a bit early to make predictions, isn't it? Because we've still got a couple of weeks. Or it's one more. No, it's less than 2 weeks. Wow, this really is creeping up on us. But my initial prediction is, and I'll probably stick with it, is going to be AJ to win on points. 116, 112, something like that. But I think Otto Wallin will give him a couple of problems. So what do you think? Leave your comments below. Do you agree with me? Do you disagree with me? What do you think of Joshua? I know some of you don't rate him. Some of you are supportive of him. I am as well. I think it's all mental with him. I don't buy the idea that I certainly don't buy the idea that he's been, he's fought no one, and this is utter crap. It normally comes from idiotic Fury fanboys, but no, he's fought good people. He's fought anyone. He's never. You can argue that he's avoided Wilder lately. Definitely, you can definitely do that. But if you look at his resume, it is actually very, very good. But what do you think? You may disagree with that. Leave your comments below. What do you think about Wallin? How much of a chance do you think Wallin's got? I'm interested to hear what you got to say. I'll read your comments, of course. Thank you for your time, as always. Please subscribe to the channel if you're new. Hit the subscribe button and also the like button, because, as I always say, Apparently they count them. I don't know why, but they do. Maybe something to do with advertising. I don't know. Anyway, thanks for your time. I'll read your comments and answer them, and you take care and bye for now.